Here's my story how I got arrested, falsely accused of child trafficking, and imprisoned in jail for 3 days in the Dominican Republic. On January 23rd, I decided to travel to the Dominican Republic because a great opportunity came up. It was a difficult decision to make considering the situation, however, it was a necessary decision for me. The purpose of my trip was to travel the country capturing images for a hotel. I would film and create videos in the form of a vlog to captivate the audience in order to discover a different experience in the DR. Most people only know about Punta Cana and the beautiful beaches, but there is so much more to visit and discover in this country. Sometimes, you see interesting things.
Hey, what's up guys? Moo. Moo moo. Hey, you want some milk?
One day I was walking on the beach and I saw a guy who was teaching kids how to flip, and I asked him if I can use the ball to try myself. He told me he practiced Capoeira and taught those kids, so I got excited because I practiced Capoeira myself. We played a bit and afterwards he invited me to a Capoeira gathering at a school a couple weeks later. I took an Uber to the location Daniel sent me and found the place they were practicing Capoeira. I was excited to see so many people practicing, including kids. So I decided to participate in the class. It was quite the challenge considering no one spoke English and I barely spoke Spanish. However, we were more or less able to understand each other because of the language of movement. As the class continued, I was very intrigued about what was going on and who those kids were. A man from the class came up to me and saw that I was confused. He approached me and spoke to me in English.
Indulge me. Alright, how about we do this? Let me do the class? Yes. Okay, cool. We're gonna do the class. Perfect.
This is when I met Rob. Rob has a foundation by the name of D.R I. Each week he hosts a Capoeira class and teaches these kids.
What made me start doing this? I told you it's my dharma. I told you it's my life's purpose. So, before I'm an attorney, I was practicing law, I was working with my family, and slowly I've been detaching myself to all those material attachments to devote myself to service. And I guess the best way to say it is divine intervention. To discover that my true purpose was to serve and was to pass on to others everything I've learned, pass on to these kids. And that's pretty much what we do.
Nosotros somos el proyecto de Fundación Via Light. Nuestro objetivo principal es encaminar a los niños más vulnerables y necesitados a una vida de luz dentro de las comunidades paralelas a los polos turísticos dominicanos. Dicha misión se logra mediante programas que impulsan el crecimiento socioeconómico sostenible, como por ejemplo la preparación y organización de profesionales técnicos, de emprendedores y de productores en áreas de demanda y necesidad para la comunidad.
Si hay 5 metros, 5 por 7, ¿cuántos son?
3.500.
Dale, Stevenson. 3.500.
Adicional a los menores de edad, nuestro público objetivo son también las madres de nuestras comunidades.
Con mis hijos, para que Robert me ayude con los muchachos míos, para adelante, a mí también, para yo sentirme más feliz, para ver si me ayuda para quitarme los muchachos míos en la calle, para ir ponerme para la escuela, para ir estudiar también.
Pero antes de iniciar el proceso de educación vocacional y profesiones técnicas, debemos primero trabajar la energía y carga emocional de los menores. El deporte y el arte son nuestros instrumentos esenciales para esto. La capoeira es el instrumento primordial para los niños trabajadores de las calles. Nos permite llevarlos a la etapa de ser enseñables.
Our ultimate mission is to build a vocational school, a learning center, a healing center, if you may, where children go, they will get their fundamental education, meaning their schooling, elementary school and so on, but focused on developing a trade, a technical career. And our goal is that by the time each kid turns 15, 16 years old, they're somewhat of a professional. They're knowledgeable in some sort of trade. So while they're in elementary school, we're kind of playing around with different types of traits to see where their strengths lie. And depending on where their strengths lies, and obviously what they like as well, Normally, kids will develop something that they're strong at if you encourage them. How do we do that? Well, we try to increase opportunities that will elevate the social economic conditions of these communities. Now, we choose the communities that are adjacent to the tourist development area. Normally, the community that serves the tourist development businesses and so on. If an area is going to develop economically because of tourism, and the buildings are going to be nice because the hotels are nice, and the main strip is nice because the government and the private sector is putting money into it. Well, we want the streets where the community lives to be nice too, but not just nice because of development with running water. Nice in terms of their architecture, their culture, their art, everything. We want them to develop artistically, financially, and so on. In order for us to work with the children and rescue the children, we have to work with the parents that they have at home, which is 80-90% of the time it's a mother, some sort of woman figure, a grandmother or a mother. So we want to create opportunities, micro entrepreneurship opportunities for the women. We want to empower the women so that they can become micro entrepreneurs. Why entrepreneurs? Because they can have a little kind of family business thing going on where they're selling products to the market, to the town, and they can raise their children at the same time. So not necessarily something that they have to go check in, or they can become a technical, a tradeswoman as well. So we can talk about rescuing children or parents without talking about rescuing Mother Earth. So for us, it's very important we advocate that to create programs that stop and reverse negative impacts, the carbon footprint, to reverse and to stop the increase of the carbon footprint on Earth. So, for example, one of the programs we want to develop is hydroponic farming. We thought it would be a great idea to empower the women of the community to have hydroponic farms. And we would go in, set up whatever they need, set them up. So all they have to do is just cultivate these products. And then we'll have a weekly farmers market, and we'll sell these products to the hotels and the restaurants that serve tourism.
So you're not only increasing local economy, but you're also creating job opportunities for these mothers.
Absolutely. And we feel that there's going to be a natural distribution of wealth. So now, as opposed to the hotel buying tomatoes from whoever they're buying it from, why don't you buy it from the local community? It was Christina's idea. She said, we should teach a weekly capoeira class, because we were one time we were having a meeting. We were trying to figure out, okay, we want to help out, but what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And she goes, well, I think we should teach a capoeira class for the street working kids. And at the beginning, I was opposed, because I said, I don't know if it's necessarily prudent and intelligent of us to teach these kids how to fight. But once I did it, and once I saw that there was the dance, the jinga, when you're taught a martial art and when you practice these contact sports, your goal is to win. But in capoeira, there's no winner or loser. You just play. So after I was exposed to it, I said, no, this stuff is good. The music, I felt the presence of the Holy Spirit when I would play the music. So I fell in love with it, and then I became an advocate, and that's how we started doing capoeira.
Our job is through capoeira, we work the energy that creates obstacles in every human being.
Apart from teaching these kids capoeira, Rob teaches them fundamental values as well.
¿Qué fue lo que yo le enseñé?
Ser honesto.
¿Quién sabe lo que significa ser honesto? Diga usted.
Ser honesto será que cuando una persona te da una cosa, tú no le hablas mal, siempre ya, mata y
negativo. Ok, está bien. Para el tercer principio, dijimos ser honesto, ser agradecido.
No me enojaré por hoy.
Todos son solo por hoy. ¿no? Pero sí, solo por hoy, no me enojo. ¿Y el cuarto? ¿Quién se acuerda del cuarto?
Yo me acuerdo que solo por hoy haré mi trabajo a la mejor capacidad.
Hey, señora, vamos a un aplauso, Julián. Vamos a un aplauso, Julián.
Out of necessity for survival, these kids hustled to work on the streets on a daily basis, regardless of the pandemic. They would clean windshields when the car would stop at the intersection. Rob is trying to rescue these kids off the streets and help them live a life of light.
The way we started was, we went to the traffic light where they would clean windshields. Bahia and I, we just started practicing capoeira and playing the instruments, and the kids kind of gravitated towards us. So we would go to the traffic lights as long as the cops allowed us to. So one day, I told them, look, we're going to teach in school. We're going to do the classes in the school because we were not allowed to be in the Coco Loco traffic light anymore. They make their way through rides. They hitchhike together.
But teaching these kids capoeira isn't the only thing that Rob does to help them. At the end of the class, he would feed them a meal, and if anyone made a donation, he would give it to the kids.
The reason I'm giving David and Ezekiel, because I don't have enough for all of them. So what we do is we reward them for good behavior. The ones that don't behave well, they'll get something, but it's the only way we can create discipline in a way where we're not necessarily reprimanding them. These are just things that people donate to me. And they say, look, eso papá, toma. I tried to do a sneaker drive with my friends in the US, in New York. And I didn't really get the feedback and the energy that I was expecting. So I told my sister, I said, listen, I'm trying to do a sneaker drive. Could you get your friends to donate their last season sneakers? And she said, well, look, it's COVID-19, not really trying to deal with all that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go out and buy some sneakers for your kids. So she went out, my sister, and she bought 7 or 9 pairs.
I was moved by the work Rob was doing for these kids. He told me he was preparing to film a pilot for a documentary called The Street Angels. I asked if there was anything I can do to help and volunteered to film the making of this documentary.
I came up with the idea of creating this documentary so that I would be able to put this content out there and generate and bring the resources that I need so I can either people volunteering or people donating so that we can work with these kids and not only work with these 10 initial kids, but to go out and get the other kids too. So I put my resources into this project, and this project for me was like my last wind. When I'm gone, all they have to do is just recreate. The process has already been done. All you have to do is just recreate it. And if it's documented, if you see how capoeira, using capoeira and using what we're teaching these kids, fundamental values, are changing their lives, and using these vocational trainings, 5-10 years down the road, when you come back and one of these kids are like a mechanic and he has a mechanic shop or he's working as a head mechanic in a shop, you're like, we were able to witness the development of these kids growing from where they're at now and where they're going to be. So I think it's important. I think it's important to put material out there to inspire people and hopefully let people see how, like, for example, me, in my case, I've renounced on the pursuit of monetary gain to devote myself to service. Now, you don't have to go out and do this, but you can go volunteer. Kind of like you did.
Yeah.
Like
exactly,
you could say,
yeah.
Bro, I just want to be a part. Let me just do it a weekend. And it makes a difference.
It does.
Pon el brazo izquierdo ahí. Pero mira, tú me estás dejando ese pie izquierdo por fuera. Vente, bueno, para adentro. Sale, pero no se queda allá afuera así. Es aquí corto. Salgo. Go. Look. Sit. Ach. Q. Es como. 1, 2, 3. 4. 2. Yes. Yeah.
manos aquí, aquí. Ni. Ni. San. San. Chi.
One.
Ni. Ni. San. San. Eso, yes. Kick. Kick. No, no, así. Uno. Dos. Calma. Yes. Al. She. She. Go. Go. Unfortunately, that's not where the story ends. On March 6th, myself, Rob, and the 3 other filmmakers were arrested and falsely accused of child trafficking and exploitation of minors. All our fundamental rights were violated during this unfortunate experience. No one gave us a chance to speak about our story. Several articles were written online and on TV accusing us of child trafficking, exploiting minors, and filming a documentary about exploiting minors. These articles on the news are defaming us. The following part of the video explains our experience being locked up in jail and elaborates on aspects of how our rights were violated. The police are currently illegally holding onto our most valuable equipment, including our cell phones, cameras, and all the footage we filmed that day, despite the judge liberating us with pure and simple freedom because the prosecution did not provide sufficient evidence for accusing us of child trafficking and exploitation of minors. They are still pursuing an investigation and refusing to return our belongings. The authorities detained 5 of the kids for over 30 days that participated in the project. They did not tell the parents the location of these kids and told them that they took those kids away because they allowed the kids to participate in the documentary. We have no information from the authorities, our lawyers, or the Canadian Embassy. Rob wrote a letter to the President of the Dominican Republic and sent him a video explaining his work, and I wrote a letter to the Minister of Tourism of the Dominican Republic. We have not heard back from either. I see no alternative to resolve the situation only by sharing our story publicly and express the injustices that we experienced. I ask you, please continue watching this video and afterwards sharing it because your voice is the most important tool for our justice and everyone else's. It was only because so many people shouted for us while we were being detained that we were released so quickly.
You know, this is only speculation because I haven't had it confirmed. They were under the impression that the footage that we were capturing was somehow going to hurt tourism because it was going to expose something that the powers that be do not want people to know about. Even the major hinted to when we were detained was that the authorities were not going to support or be supportive of this project because it was somehow going to hurt tourism.
Just to make it clear, it is not illegal to film. It's not like a mean to put someone in jail if they're filming something.
No, it's
like
it's not penalized with jail time or it's not criminalized. It's just ignorance. They didn't know. They didn't take the time to come and speak to us and see what we were doing. And we didn't release any footage. We were just taking footage. They accused us of doing something that we hadn't even done.
The people needs to know what happened what was your experience with that, all that stuff that we saw in the newspapers and in the media, that some people were trafficking child, and making movies and trafficking child, and you were accused of that, and we saw a picture of you in a digital media and the television also.
Well, the first thing, the cops just came. There's a lot of cops that came to us, and I'm confused. There's a lot of Spanish talking. It's loud, and I'm like, "What, Rob? What's happening?" And he's like, "We're being detained. We're going to jail." I'm like, in my head, I was like, "That's impossible. What did we do wrong?" And then as the time passed, they started accusing us of child trafficking, exploitation. In my head, I couldn't believe what was going on. They took a photo of us without telling us where the photo was going to be. One guy took his phone, he took a photo of us, and then literally a couple hours after, there's an article that says we were being accused of child trafficking and exploiting minors. The articles that they put up online, was that legal? Or were they allowed to do that?
That was not legal because, first of all, if it's an ongoing investigation, you're not you know how you see in the movies where they ask the lieutenant something, a press conference, he says, "I'm not allowed to elaborate on that. It's an ongoing investigation." It's an ongoing investigation. You have no proof of anything. You haven't presented an accusation. You can't take a picture of a group of people that you're supposedly accusing of a crime, or you're trying to put together a case. the fact that you release that, if it's true, it can hurt your investigation.
We did not have any right to make a phone call. I couldn't even contact the Canadian embassy. Every time I tried to ask them, I needed to tell my friends, I have the right to call a lawyer. I need to call the Canadian embassy. Every time they would just walk away from when we were in the cell. I never managed to call the embassy. Thankfully, my friend, when I told Christina, which is Rob's partner, I'm like, please find a way to call my friend. And then he found a way to call my friend. My friend, she told him the story. My friend called the embassy, tried to email them. Then it took more than 24 hours. Only like at night on the second day, or like in the afternoon in the second day, the embassy finally called me. They took me out. They're like, the Canadian embassy's on the phone. I told them everything. It's like, hey, I've been trying to manage to contact you, but this is the first time I'm in contact. And she told me that, okay, you have the right to call a lawyer. We can send you a list of lawyers that worked with Canadians. And then she said that whenever you want to call me, like the embassy, you can call me anytime. You have the right to do that. When I finished the phone call, there was the major. I tell Christina, can you translate, please? Can you tell him, hey, you never let me call the Canadian embassy? Then the major says, yeah, because it's a process. We can't let you call the embassy. It's an investigation. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. You're allowed to call the embassy whenever.
No, they were violating your right.
We had some of our fundamental rights
violated.
Are we allowed a phone call by law?
Yeah. By law, you are entitled to a phone call. It's instituted in our Constitution. It's Article 40. It establishes when you are being detained, all the rights that you have, and the obligations that the authorities have with you. You are entitled to the right of notifying your family members, your lawyers, to let them know your situation, that you're currently incarcerated, so that they can go ahead and prepare your defense, because ultimately what they're violating is your defense, and everyone is entitled to have an accurate and proper defense. They didn't allow us to make a phone call. They didn't tell us our rights, and they didn't allow us to speak to our lawyers once they knew we had lawyers. We're supposed to be able to speak to our lawyers in confidentiality. They didn't allow us to do so.
And were they allowed to arrest us without a warrant?
I'm glad you bring that up. Technically, no. They're not supposed to arrest you without a warrant. First of all, the politician has no authority to do a civilian's arrest. You can't do that. You can't just say, look, detain these people and give instructions to police officers to arrest us. And we weren't committing a crime. We were literally in our van. We had just gotten out, but we didn't even have cameras on us. So under the pretense, one, we've already established that recording is not illegal, that requires imprisonment. It's not criminalized, right? So yes, we were arrested illegally. You can arrest someone without a warrant if they are what we call flagrante delito. It's pretty much when you're captured committing the crime. So if, like, for example, someone is stabbing somebody, the cops actually see them stabbing them, right? So if we're trafficking kids, they were accusing us of trafficking kids. The cops needed to see us trafficking kids. But they arrested us on those premises, but they arrested us completely illegally.
At 8 p.m., like 6 or 8 p.m., we were able to go out, and then the friends of Rob were there. And then that was only because they found out from the news article, the Bavaro News, that were accusing us of child trafficking. That's the only way that people found out where we were after making phone calls trying to figure out where we were being detained.
And Bavaro News, they talked to you because we saw that article, and we know some people that knows Robert, so we knew it was a lie, So we made like a post in Instagram saying that some filmmakers, Dominicans, and tourists were detained, accused of child trafficking, and they were not doing that, So the media didn't talk to you. It was like you saw that the news, and they didn't even talk to you.
No one ever said anything to us. Like, no one ever contacted us. Like, the only people that actually, like you said, helped us were you guys. You guys wrote an article, you guys posted, and people were just flagrantly writing articles about us. No one talked to me, to Rob, or the filmmakers. I never got any phone calls about that. They put the name of the project called Las Canijitas, and I'm like, who invented this name? Like, the project itself was, like when Rob told me about the project, the name was called Street Angel.
La policía turística en Bávaro, Punta Cana, apresó a 5 cineastas durante el rodaje del documental titulado Los Canillitas. Y de acuerdo a los productores, el mismo trata de la explotación laboral de los menores de edad en los semáforos de esa ciudad balneario. Giovanni Javier se ocupó del tema.
Los apresados por el Cuerpo Especializado de Seguridad Turística CESTUR son el director Josías Francisco Domínguez Familia, Carlos Manuel Pérez, Edinson Vladimir, Malik Bouwadi y Roberto Zapata, quienes de acuerdo con el regidor Wander Encarnación, estos no contaban con los debidos permisos.
Tenemos una lucha con los niños y los jóvenes que están en el semáforo, limpiando vidrio y pidiendo, por 2 cosas. Primero, porque es una mala imagen, y segundo, por el peligro que significa eso. Es una mala imagen para nuestro país, nuestra marca, que es Punta Cana a nivel internacional. Debemos cuidarla. Inmediatamente llegamos, llamamos una unidad de sector y lo detuvieron, lo llevaron a sector. El coronel de extracto inmediatamente lo interrogó, donde encontró un documento de los niños mal elaborado, firmado por los padres, cosa que nos encontramos de muy mal gusto. Tenemos que cuidar un poco la gallina de los huevos de oro, que es nuestro destino bávaro.
The worst of this, we were doing an act of kindness. I was trying to volunteer to do an act of kindness, and I get put in jail with a bunch of criminals, accused of being a criminal, treated like a criminal, insulted and everything like that. And I'm here to promote, tourism. It's COVID. It's a very hard time. They did not acknowledge the fact I was a tourist. I did not fit in. I barely spoke Spanish. I'm trying to explain to them, hey, I want to please explain the situation. Never a chance to explain the situation. There was so much evidence that showed that we were not trafficking kids or we were not exploiting minors. And we had all this camera equipment filming. There was the guy with the sound equipment. Sometimes, the cops come to you. He's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, you
like,
talk
we're filming.
with them, Yeah.
You talk to them. You civilize. You have a conversation with the people. But no chance to do a conversation.
Like they came after you and they take you to the jail.
So we were next to the van with all the equipment. We were about to go have breakfast because we didn't eat. And then they just come like I don't even know. There's 10 of them. There's a lot of them. He's yelling and all that stuff. And then one of the cop gets on the passenger seat and he tells Rob, he's like, all right, we're driving to the station. So Rob drove us in the van with the cop to the police station. We left the equipment there, and then we got to the station. We had to take our stuff, our phones. They were putting it our IDs, putting on the table. They were insulting us. The guys, they're like, you guys are Dominicans, somos Dominicanos, and then it's disgrace to the country. They were telling that to the filmmakers, and then I'm like, I'm so confused. I'm like, what's going on? Can I make a phone call? Please, phone call, blah, 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 a lot of yelling. I'm like, they're absolutely not wanting to hear anything we said. Right away, take our stuff, take your shoes, put us in the jail. And then we got lucky that there was nobody in the jail except for one. There was a kid in the jail. The kid was 17. I'm like, what the hell's going on?
It was like a minor inside the cell?
Yeah, there was a 17-year-old in the cell. And then he was in there for 4 days. And he doesn't know when he was going to get out, and he barely had food, and he wasn't really sure why he was being detained in that cell. We didn't have no beds, nothing, just not even a washroom. There was just a room, and then a little room that you peed on the ground, and
it
like smelled
that
so
here.
bad.
It's not like Canada.
I know. I was like, oh well,
that's welcome to Dominican Republic. Yeah. How much time you were in prison before seeing a judge?
So we were in jail for 3 days. We slept 2 nights in Friusa, and then on Monday, March 8th, this was more than 40 hours. They took us to Tigüey, to I think the Central, to see a prosecutor. They brought us to the courtyard of the jail, basically. I'm like, what's going on? I thought we were going to see the judge. Me and Rob were handcuffed together. He asked the questions hey, we should see a judge. It's been more than 40 hours. And they're like, no, you're going to see the judge maybe tomorrow. And then they took Rob in the cell, and then they took me aside. And then they tell me, come, we're going somewhere. I'm like, where are we going? They put me in the back of the police car. They take me to this other jail called La Malena. Okay. And then when I get there, they strip me, the cop, strips me to see if I had any weapons or anything like that. He checks my money, and he asks me, do I want to pay to stay here? And I'm like, what do you mean pay? I'm confused. And then they bring me to like the cell, and then it was like super intimidating. It was like the movies. Like you have like a bunch of inmates. You have like, you know, there's mats. There's like a shower. It was a better jail than where they were. It was the more comfortable jail, but it was like really scary because I didn't know any Spanish. I didn't know anybody. There's a bunch of inmates there. There's like the boss that tells me you have to pay 3,500 pesos a week if you want to stay here. I'm like, I don't have money. How do I do that? So all that experience, I'm like, I just want to go home. I just want to go home.
Well, I mean, with Melik, it costs like 3,500 pesos a week. And if you want your cell phone, you pay 3,500 pesos a week. So the man, the boss of this jail, he's making a lot of money. He work with the lawyer, they try to keep you there. Like this, they share the money together. So the lawyer actually can get you out, but he don't want to get you out because he will spend more money in jail. He will get the money from the man of jail. And they're all working together. It's a circle. So it was like an Irish guy who's living in London, a businessman. He has business in London. Rich man, he was on resort. He was with his girlfriend. She get drunk. She broke his laptop, everything. When the police arrived, she just told him, hey, they were like, hey, what's going on? She said, hey, he punched me. She lied. He went to jail. He's still in jail. So he spent in 3 weeks. 3 weeks, he spent 8,500 euros. She came to the judge and said, hey, I just lied. I was drunk. I was confused, and I say this. He's still there.
And then in that cell, I got lucky because there was a German guy who was in there, and he was falsely accused of hitting a girl. He met a girl in Punta Cana, and then something happened, and she was beating him. She started beating him. She tried to rob him, and then he holds her. They try to call the cops. The cops come, and then when they go to the hospital, the girl was hitting herself in the stomach, and then she was saying, yeah, he was hitting me. And then the cops, they took the guy and they put him in the jail, and then he was like, he spent they sent it to the Higüey, where the Guagua, where like you're one after the other. He saw a guy getting raped in there. It was really bad for him, and then he got transferred to the La Malena, and they were accusing him of beating a woman.
For you guys who don't know, the buses. So these cells, these are communal cells. So they put like 500, 600, 700 people in these communal cells, and what they do is they line people up, one behind another. And it's kind of like you're spooning somebody, right? So you're sitting like this on the floor, and you have someone in front of you sitting like that, and someone in front of them, and someone in front of them, and they call that the bus.
He take me to this jail. I'm not allowed to be there. My lawyer got the money to put me there. When I get in, I saw that he raped somebody. A few minutes after that, somebody came. He was like, "What you doing here?" I was like, "I'm waiting for you will take me to another jail." He was like, "Hey, no, you will get here." I was like, "No, I'm following her. You will." He said, "I don't care. I don't care." When I just saw he want to put me in a jail, when I saw just a few minutes ago, I saw that they raped somebody. So imagine the feeling. Yeah, I'm lucky because I have dreadlocks. I don't want no stress. Here's the money. And he asked me, hey, are you Rastafari? I was like, yes. And he just respect Rastafari. I was lucky. 3 meters and 3 meters, included the bathroom. 45 people in Corona alive. But imagine you have 45 people who are going to the bathroom, and the bathroom is open. So you can imagine how it smells. 8 hours, and I was like, okay, I will not eat, I will not drink, I prefer to die. My back was hurting me, you cannot see, you're not allowed to stand up. You stand up just 5 minutes, and then they tell you, hey, get down. And you have people, it's like, you had the same position when I was watching Netflix with my girlfriend.
But he then started explaining to me that all these people that were in La Malena, they were all in there because they were falsely accused. Like one guy, he was with a woman that was just taking advantage of him and freeloading, and then he's like, you know what, I'm breaking up with you, you can leave, you're not paying anything. And then she went to the cops saying, yeah, he beats me. They put him in jail. He's been in there for 3 months, and every single lawyer that these guys would get, they would pay them, and then the lawyers would scam them. They would either postpone their court date, or they would try to keep them in jail as long as possible. And I was freaking out because they're like, oh yeah, you're not going to get out. You're going to stay here for a month at least. So they're going to keep making you pay to stay inside of the jail. And
it's like everyone that goes to La Malena is fucked up.
It's a business.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, these people don't look like criminals. They look really, really innocent. They're not big. They're not like those typical criminals you see in the movie with tattoos and all. They're like a guy
they see like old men, sleeping in
there was a guy, he was like 65 and he was sick. They brought him to the hospital. He got better and they brought him back in the cell. The people who made movies, they did good research.
Yeah, we call them the probo.
The probo.
Yeah. That's the boss of the jail.
The probo, okay.
Yeah.
Your jail experience was more authentic. Tell me a little bit about that experience.
it was scary because obviously, like, you and I were in the courtyard and we're looking at the inmates from hanging from the rails, right?
Yeah, they were like
the doors
just
and
banging, yes.
and they just have their hands out, and we're looking at, and as I'm looking at these guys, I see these guys, like, most of them have more scars than Frankenstein, and these scars are from like knife fights and machete fights. So you're looking at some pretty like hardcore criminals in there, and all types of guys, big guys, small guys, but these guys, they look like the real deal. So when they put me in the cell, I see that the cop, he whispers something to an inmate, and the inmate looks at me and he just nods. He says yes. I'm like, oh my God. And this is me in my mind, right? Preparing myself, like, oh my God, I don't know what he told them, but so I see the cop whisper something to this guy's ear, and I'm like, oh my God, I hope he didn't tell him, like, like, this guy, we're gonna put him in there, but make sure you just give him, a good lesson or whatever, right? The case may be. But as soon as you walk in, those guys, they rush to you, and they take you to the leader of the jail cell, and they strip you down because they have to make sure that you have no weapons. They're completely naked, and we're talking about inmates, not police officers, so you're completely naked. And then they go through your pockets, but like I said early on, I was fasting the entire time. I was a little scared when they rushed me over there because I didn't know why they were taking me to the back. I thought they were gonna take me to the back to try to, like, beat me up. And I'm looking around, I'm like, well, let me go with the flow because there's too many of them. And I'm thinking in my mind, like, worst comes to worst, if they're taking me to the back to beat me up, then I'm gonna defend myself. I'm not gonna go out. I'm gonna go out with a bang, right? I don't know what they were gonna do, but thankfully, they said, look, thankfully Josias and those guys were in there first, because I saw their faces and they told me, take it easy, don't worry about it. Because at the beginning I was like, no, wait, I'm not going back there with you guys. And I almost had a moment of like, no, I'm staying right here. If anything's gonna happen, it's gonna happen right here where the CO or the police officer's there. But they rushed me to the back. I went with them. I saw the guys, and they told me, take it easy, don't worry about it. It's part of the process. Then the guy who was in charge of the cell, he's a real good guy. He was a good guy to me. He was a cool guy. He came, he said, listen, don't worry about it. No one's going to hurt you. It's just part of the process. We're going to strip you down, make sure you don't have any weapons. They took my money from me. And then, as I started talking to the guy, I sat down. I started talking to the boss of the cell. He gave me my money back. I had to pay to stay in that area because otherwise they were going to put me in the other area where the guagua was. So the guy says, listen, if you want to stay here, you can stay here, or you can go to the bus. But if you go to the bus, you're going to have to fight there because those guys, they gave me the spiel. And at the end of the day, I ended up paying to make sure that I and the 3 other filmmakers were to stay there, and the guy ended up being very cool. I actually spent my time in his corner, his little protected corner. I like to think that God was with me the entire time, and somehow the angels whispered in his ear, and he said, "This guy, he's a good guy. You want to treat him well." And he treated me well. And I don't really want to disclose too much information about what happened in there because I don't want to get the guys in trouble, because those guys, they have power in there. They have power. But let's just say that they were an important role for us getting out that same day. Even you getting out that same day.
I don't want people from the DR saying, oh, he's trying to harm tourism. Like, I'm still trying to promote tourism. I would still, gladly come back after this. Yeah. I want people to understand, like, this would have not happened to any tourists, like, in any situation. It was just because I was with the guys and there was a huge misunderstanding, and it so happened that I was there at the right time, the wrong time, the right place.
All you Canadian citizens out there, please do not get discouraged in terms of coming to the Dominican Republic because of this experience. This is not really representative to what a touristic experience is like. This is a worldwide situation. Corruption is something that we deal with in every country, including the biggest countries. These are just things that we have to expose and speak about in order to create change. And ultimately, what I don't want is neither this or anything else that we put out there to detour us from what our mission is, which is to help and empower the least fortunate through education, through job opportunities.
The cops, because you told me that these kids, they go out every day and it violates the traffic code, for example. I think you mentioned that to me.
Yeah, obstruction of traffic and so on.
So when these kids, like every time they go, they get in trouble with the police. What do the police do to them?
To my understanding, in Punta Cana, they don't want these children on the street. It's dangerous for these kids to be on the street. So what the police do, when they find them in the traffic lights cleaning windshields, they will pick them up and detain them for 2 days supposedly, and then they release them. And the way they attempt to deal with this is continuing to do that. They'll just keep detaining them for 2 days. And you were detained for 2 days.
Yeah.
It's not.
But when you say we were detained, we were put in a cell. Is that
imprisoned?
How does that help the kids? You know, if they keep detaining them 2 days at a time and the kids keep coming back, how is that a form of help?
Well, it's not a form of help. It's just a form of them trying to deal with the problem. Obviously, tourism is very important for the Dominican Republic. So the image of Punta Cana and Bávaro has to really be protected. And I think they do it because they just want to keep, the image. They want to keep it as clean and as nice as possible, which you can't fault them for it. But I don't really think that the police are doing anything to help. They're just kind of trying to fix the problem through repression.
One of the things that really, broke me inside, the second day we were in the jail, when I was able to call the embassy, I get outside and I see the kids, like the 5 of the kids that Rob works with, that I've seen. I see them in the Polisa, the office. They're like, Malik. I'm like, oh, what are you guys doing here? What are you guys doing? And they were so happy to see me. And the mom was there too. And I was happy to see them, but in a way I wasn't happy because one of them was handcuffed to the seat. I'm like, what happened? And Christina told me they were there because supposedly they were trying to steal dogs. I don't know what they were accused for. And then I was like, hey, this is a good timing to try to clear this misunderstanding. I look at the lieutenant. I'm like, hey, I say the mother and the kids, like, is it true that we were trying to film a documentary? And they're like, yes, it's true. The kids and the mom said, yes, it's true. Sí, claro, it's true. And then I'm like, is it true that Rob helps you guys, teaches you capoeira, feeds you and everything? They're like, yes, it's true. And then, is it true that you gave permission to film for this documentary? And the mom's like, yes, it's true. And I look at the lieutenant, I'm like, do I look like a child trafficker to you? I'm an honest person. Like, can I go now? Is it time? They took the kids. Those kids were like 12 years old. I think one of them was like 15. I'm not sure, but they were small. They were at least 12. They took those kids and they put them in the cells, not our cell, but they put them in the cells. They locked them up in. And then as I'm walking, they're banging. They're like, Malik. And I could not look at them. I put my head down. I was crying. I was so sad. I'm like, I can't help you guys. I felt so vulnerable. And then they're banging the whole entire night. They're banging. They're like, Robe. They're yelling. And then Rob's like, is that the kids? I'm like, yeah, it's one of the kids. They're trying to, they're asking for help. Yeah. And those kids, I don't know where they are. And none of us know where they are. And the one day I'm walking in Punta Cana after I got released. And the mom comes, she's like, ¿Dónde están los niños? ¿Dónde están los niños? I'm like, I don't know where the kids are. It's like the kids, they're still arrested. They're still being detained. I haven't seen them in 17 days. I'm like, what's going on? She's like, I'm trying to call Rob. I'm like, Rob doesn't have his phone. They have all their phone. They tell the parents that because the parents accepted to be part of this film, they accepted that the kids would be part of the project, that they took them away. And they're blaming us for that. And I saw what the work Rob does. I got to experience, working with the kids just a bit, participating with the class. I got to, bond with the kids. These kids are, they're smart, they're fun, they're bright, and it doesn't make sense. These kids, for example, when we were filming, they kept taking my camera to learn how to, they're like, oh, I want to do photos. So those are the same kids that were part of the documentary. And then throughout the day filming, as I'm filming the behind the scenes, the kid is like, oh, Malika, come on, like, how do you play back? And I'm like, oh, you just do this, you do that to play back. And then they kept asking questions, and then I show Rob, I'm like, hey Rob, you see these photos? They're nice photos. And then they're like, yeah, they're really nice photos. You took really great photos. I'm like, no, I didn't take those photos. It's the kids that took the photos. And these were being able to be participate. Like I do capoeira, and that's why I was like so passionate and mesmerized about what the work Rob was doing. I'm like, I have to participate in this. Like these kids, someone who's helping these kids learn capoeira, someone who's helping these kids get out of the streets, trying to feed them. Like Canadians, we're super privileged. And we see a lot of these kids, poor in poor countries in Africa, in the DR, and all these South American countries, like, oh, these kids need food. These kids need, schools. But that's not the truth. Yeah. What they need the most is guidance. They need love. They need education. They need discipline. And that's exactly what Rob was doing to help these kids. And there's not many people that are doing that. The people who are supposed to help the people are the ones that are just making it harder for that. I'm like, how could someone be trying to put you in jail to make you stop helping these kids when you're you're doing social work, you have a foundation? And that's why I had to take a decision. I'm like, I want my equipment back. I need the equipment that they're holding to go back to work, so I can, live as well, pay my bills. But there's also this part of the story that happened that is extremely unjust on my part. The injustice that I felt through this whole situation with like other people that are currently in that situation, but also the work that Rob is doing. And he's been doing this for a couple of years, and imagine all the time that he's been working with these kids, and then all his project is just taken and thrown away.
Yeah.
¿Cómo se dice? Gracias. ¿Cómo se dice? De nada. ¿Cómo se dice? Gracias.
So I can put myself in his shoes, and it's super difficult in that situation. I'm like, I got scared. I'm like, should I talk about this? I know it's very, like, freedom of speech here is not the same as freedom of speech in Canada. So I'm like, is anything going to happen to me speaking about this? Well, I'm like, it's inhumane of me not to speak about this. And I really hope in this situation that this misunderstanding, like, just people realize how easy it is to create false news, to propaganda. Like, for us, it was so easy, just put us in a cell, make us shut up, and then start putting out false accusations on articles. You can lie to people, and if you lie enough and it's so powerful, that becomes the truth. And that's exactly what was happening, that this lie was becoming the truth. Every single person knows what Rob is doing. There is so much evidence, like filming. He's got videos from the past on his social media, him showing the work he's been doing with the kids. Everybody knows, like, and then
even the authorities knew.
Even the authorities knew. He's been telling me, I had contact with the major. He told me that he spoke with the major when he was teaching these kids on the street. That first they started teaching them in the semáforo, on the grass, and then they're like, you can't do this. You can't teach these kids here. So they had a meeting to try to figure out how to help with the kids. And he told me, the major told him, I really admire what you're doing. There's a lot of people that talk, but not a lot of people do what you actually do.
When I came to the decision that I was going to start the capoeira class in Bávaro area, I communicated to them in writing. I sent them a letter. I took a letter physically, and I said, "Could you receive mine?" And in my letter, I said, "Look, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. This is what I want to do with the kids. My goal is to get them out of the street and eventually have them become a vocational tradesman." And then after that, we had subsequent meetings.
He even asked a politician, can he cut the grass? Like, he needs someone to help cut the grass. And they came and they cut the grass so that he could practice with the kids capoeira. And there's all videos on Facebook showing him practicing capoeira. And eventually they were like, you can't do this. It's an intersection. You got to find somewhere else. He got, he built this infrastructure out of his money. He's not making any money. He built this in behind a school to, to have the classes there. And they managed to move that to the back of the school. And the kids, they don't even have a lift. They have to take conchos, or they have to find a way to get there. And the reason why I went into film in the first place was to be able to, entertain people, to motivate younger generation, to create, content, to harness their artistic side. Yeah. And, then to have enough influence to be able to start doing things like social work and to help people. The power of the people is the most important thing. because it's only thanks to you guys, for example, and thanks to everybody shouting, hey, get them out, that we were able to get out. In any situation, some other guy like me that doesn't have contacts, that doesn't have people, they would still be in jail. You know, he told me that we are lucky that we got out. Because
really lucky, yeah.
We could have been here for months, and right now they're still doing an investigation. There's an ongoing investigation. They're still doing according to the Canadian Embassy. There's still a current investigation about us.
Okay.
And I'm like, what is there, to investigate?
Because what I don't understand is why they have to take your equipment, like your camera, your lenses, your sound equipment, to make an investigation. The only thing they need is the memory card, to see.
Exactly.
The video.
They're still holding on to
in this country, according to the penal, the process penal code, in order for you to confiscate people's goods, you need a judge's authorization. You can't just go, the police can't just decide, oh, you know what? You're a criminal. I'm going to take your cell phone. I'm going to take your car.
It could have taken literally 2 days to check the whole entire footage, all the hours, sit down, put on a computer, just look at everything, and then be like, okay, they realize that's not the case.
And what they're saying, like why they hold up your
There's
equipment?
I have no information. Our lawyers have no information. My lawyer is like, if you want, you could pay $500 and then we can go to court and fight for your equipment. I'm like, but the judge liberated us with our equipment. Why do I have to go back to court, pay more money that I don't have, and fight for our equipment? I don't need to do that.
When they took you to the judge, what happened?
Rob's lawyer started speaking about the case, and then the judge allowed Rob to speak and the director to speak. And my lawyer got to speak. It took like 20 minutes, not even. It was fast. And at the end of it, the judge said that there was not sufficient enough evidence of the prosecution of their case, what they're accusing us of. Therefore, we've been granted simple and pure freedom along with our belongings. And it's in the sentence as well that the judge, that we have by the judge. And then when I say that to the Canadian Embassy, the person responsible, she's like, no, you actually did not really have, according to the prosecutor, it's not simple and pure freedom, that they're still investigating. I'm like, it's written on paper, on a legal document that says pure and simple freedom. How can you get information that says it's not really simple and pure freedom? Like,
that's a lie.
Who's telling you this? Yeah. When the judge gave the sentence, what did the judge say?
The judge said that, I'm paraphrasing, because there was insufficient evidence presented by the prosecution, she saw no other alternative but to liberate us and give us pure freedom, because there was no evidence presented against us to sustain the accusations of us exploiting children, and that we should be freed immediately. And of course, us being freed includes our personal belongings. The way they obtained us and our personal belongings was illegal. Hence, as soon as the judge releases us, our belongings should be released as well.
And everybody was like, what the hell are you doing? Get the hell out of there. You're going to get locked up. And I was like, no, I'm not going to get out of here. I have a lot of things to do. It might be scary that, you could get locked up, but I'm staying here. I want to work on this video. I want to clear this misunderstanding. I want to get back this equipment. I want to prove a point that you have to fight for what you believe is right for you. And that was right for me to stay here. I was scared. A lot of times I book a ticket to go back to Canada, and I'm like, I cancel. I'm like, no, I still have to do this. I still have to clear this, because there's still these news articles saying exploitation de menores under my name, under Rob's name, under all the filmmakers' name. And I put myself in this situation. These filmmakers, imagine working in the film industry in the Dominican, and everybody, do you want to do work? They Google your name, and then they see you've been exploiting minors. And that ruins their career. Just like that. You're trying to do a good cause and your career is ruined. And myself, going back to Canada, the news is not on the Canadian news, but I still want to do work here in the Dominican Republic. I would still love to learn, assimilate Spanish and then come back and, try to get, film work. I want to, the country's beautiful. There's a lot of nice locations. I want to do that. I want to be able to do that and come back and not be afraid to come here. And that's why, I decided to stay. But you have a case and you sentence the case, and the case is still ongoing, and there's no information. I'm frustrated that no one is communicating with me, with us, even the lawyers, and everybody just wants money from us. Everybody's like, yeah, you need to pay this much.
How much money have you spent in this process?
Around $6,000 in total cash, about, give or take. One of the cameras belonged to the hotel.
Wow.
That I was like, they gave me the camera, like, you need take this camera, you can do the content you need. And now the camera's gone. It's like, well, you need to, you have to repay the equipment. And I'm like, I completely understand. I have to pay it back because it's my fault. It's my responsibility.
Yeah.
So that made me lose even more money.
I would say that I'm probably out close to $5,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah, when you add everything up, like everything I've lost, everything that was stolen from me, the conditions of the van that now need to be fixed, and the things that I still have not recovered, with lawyer fees, and then just,
you're still losing.
Us doing this right now, I lose every day because I'm not able to work. I can't work right now. I can't work on the foundation stuff, and I'm trying to transition slowly into detaching myself to being able to have to work so that I can focus on service. But in the meantime, I still have to work. And this project for me was like my last wind. I said,
it was like
I'm gonna make it or break it. Yeah,
all for one, like hit or miss, basically.
Pretty much, and like the revenue that I had, my personal revenue, I put my personal money into this because I was originally going to go into this project with someone and they backed out last minute. So I said, what am I going to do? I'm going to just have to put in what I have.
Despite all that, I'm still dedicated to film the rest of the tourism videos I was doing and promote, the country. Because after you meet the people that, hosted you, that spent time with you, you're like, there is so much potential in the Dominican Republic. These things that are hindering the development is something that it shouldn't happen. In 2021, these things shouldn't be happening.
That's right, yeah. We have like a nice country, our people is warm, and we like to be host, that's right. But we have a problem with the authorities.
That's
a serious problem because they didn't want you to harm the tourism, taking to the jail a Canadian tourist.
I wrote a letter to the Minister of Tourism, Senor David Collado. I think that's how I pronounce his name.
Yeah.
And I sent this letter to the embassy to send to them, and I don't know, I don't have any news. I'm like, what's going on?
What the government says is that we treat the tourists better than anybody, and then you take a tourist to the jail.
Yeah.
For doing nothing.
Yeah. We didn't eat for like 8 hours the whole entire day, and then Rob was trying to tell the police officer we didn't have desayuno, and then the cop's like, well, that's not my problem. You guys didn't eat.
If your friend didn't take food to you, you will starve.
I fasted the entire time I was locked up, and that helped me a lot. I was at ease. I was uncomfortable. The mosquitoes, the sleeping on the floor, the having to go to the restroom. As soon as we got in, I had to go to the restroom. But even that, I was able to quiet down and not have it affect me. I had brief moments of frustration and sadness, but I knew I was going to get out. And I knew it was just only a matter of time. My frustration really came with, am I going to finish the project?
We see how a lot of people is taken to the jail without any reason.
Yeah, and the thing is, people are just like kept in for 30 days, and they get there and then they should see a judge right away, for example. But they're kept in there for a while.
That's right.
The German guy, he went to see the judge, and then they wrote the name of the girl that was hitting him. They wrote it wrong. They wrote Danielle instead of Daniela.
Okay.
So they're like, oh yeah, you were gonna have to change that. Come back the next day to see the judge. Did you get to see a judge after 48 hours?
No, I spent like 3 days in jail, and then I went to see the judge. I went to see the judge the first day, Monday. He came, I was lucky, but you know what they did? They write down her name wrong. She's called Daniela, they write down Danielle.
He had to tell his lawyer, hey, because his lawyer was going to keep the money. He gave him all his money before going to jail because the inmates would have taken the money. And he told his lawyer, hey, listen, you're doing a great job. The German embassy really likes the work you're doing. If you keep doing a good job, the German embassy is going to hire you as a lawyer. And the lawyer believed that. He's like, oh, okay. And then when he got out, he gave him back his money. But that's not true. So if he didn't say that, the lawyer would have kept like 3,000 euros like from the guy I met.
I just had to lie to my lawyer. I told him, hey, the German embassy told me, hey, if you get me out of jail, you will have a contract with them and you will work for the German embassy. I know he will steal my money, so I have to give him the help. Like this, he will not steal my whole money.
Because it's all about the money. Sometimes, you know, sometimes the judges, the police, the attorneys, and they work, and the lawyers work together.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be, you know, but they do.
Yeah, that's he tried to call a lawyer from the embassy, the German embassy, and the cop called a lawyer he knows.
Yeah, that's right.
And then the guy, he's like, that's not the lawyer that's on the embassy. He's like, no, it's okay. This lawyer is good too. And then he couldn't make another phone call because they asked him for 1,000 pesos to make the phone call, and he wasn't able to.
1,000 pesos
to make a phone call. And then he called his friend to call the embassy, and then after he got the call, the embassy was on the phone. They grabbed the phone, and then he's like, okay, well, you know what? I have to take this lawyer. I don't have a choice, because they didn't let him call again from the lawyer from the list.
I want to call a number of a lawyer. I just realized that I didn't have credit no more. So I just asked him, hey, can I please call this lawyer? He was like, just give me a second. He called the lawyer who talked with me before. And then when I went to call the lawyer of the German embassy, the man who was there, he was like, okay, I will help you. He called that lawyer who was there, his friend. They are working together. And I was like, hey, it's not the same. And I was like, hey, I'm the lawyer before, like, with who you talk. Hey, I can get you out. And I was like, okay, just get the lawyer now. I don't have credit, so you get what you can get.
So they scammed you. So you wanted to call a lawyer from the embassy, and then the cop that you asked called the lawyer that was trying to hustle you, basically.
Exactly.
So, and then that lawyer ended up, taking a lot of money from him. Before, when he was arrested by the cops asked him, hey, it's going to cost you $700 if you don't want to go to jail. He's like, I'm not paying any money. And then they put him in jail after that, and he realized he should have just paid the money to not go to jail.
No, we hope you get your equipment back, you know?
I hope so too, you know?
I think you have to get your equipment back because you didn't do anything wrong, you know?
Yeah.
You're being a victim of the police and the attorneys and everybody, lawyers, judges. It's like a mob, you know? It's like a corrupt scheme, you know?
I'm very confident that the people, my friends and the people listening, will come to help in this situation. But for me, the resolve that I really hope is, yes, to get the equipment back. But, there's still Rob, who's his life project. He asked them a question when after class, he's like, why are you kids not in school? And the kids say, because it's COVID. And then he's like, that other kids your age are still in school and they're learning online. There's online classes happening. The kids were unaware. They're like, oh, we don't know.
¿Por qué tú no estás recibiendo educación ahora?
Porque estamos en la calle.
¿Y por qué están en la calle?
Yo estaba recibiendo aquí, mira, aquí mismo.
¿Por qué uno quiere? Porque nadie me dice a mí que salga. El día me está llamando de la capital que vaya para allá.
¿Y por qué entonces, por qué no están recibiendo educación?
También porque estamos en pandemia también y no están estudiando prácticamente, la escuela está cerrada y todo eso.
Sí, pero cuando tus papeles están aquí, tú estabas inscrito aquí. Tú estás inscrito, pero tú estás recibiendo clases por la clase por internet. La clase por internet no la han cerrado.
Despite the hardships that we experienced, Rob is determined to complete the documentary. I wish him the same and will help him in any way possible to complete his project and aid his mission, because I believe the work he is doing will create change. These are a few images from the documentary we filmed before getting arrested. We hope that the authorities will return our equipment along with the media footage to complete the project. Kids should not be working for survival. They should be burning energy, having fun, making mistakes, learning and working on their physical and mental foundations. The children are our future. As Canadians, we are privileged to grow up with an education. Many children from across the globe are deprived from this privilege, unfortunately.